If you are trying to get pregnant, but you don't want IVF as your first or only option, this one is for you. Because most women are asking the same question quietly. What else is there? And am I already missing it? In this episode, we're breaking down the cycle signs most women are told to ignore, but can actually explain why conception isn't happening yet. Heavy periods, pain that gets normalized, and subtle normal signs your body has been giving you for months. This may be the clarity you didn't know you needed. Let's get into it. Do you long to get pregnant and trust your body again? Do you feel exhausted by the month after month cycle of hope and disappointment? Do you carry that creeping sense of failure? The fear that your body just isn't working the way that it should? If so, I'm so glad that you're here, my friend. Hi, I'm Mariana, a wife, mom, and a fertility care practitioner. After years of confusion and heartache, I learned how to understand my cycle with clarity and move towards pregnancy naturally by following a real system instead of guessing. This is Fertile Window Lab. If you're ready for real clarity about your cycle, a simple method that works, and less pressure from predictions, alarms, and fertility gymnastics, sit down the sticks, pop in your earbuds, and let's make sense of your fertility together. Before we dive in, if anything I shared today sounds familiar, and you've been wondering if this is normal, or is my body trying to tell me something, you don't have to figure out all alone. You can book a fertility clarity call with me, and this month is $50 off. We can look at your cycle patterns and symptoms and start connecting the dots so you know exactly what's going on and what your next step should be. The link is in the show notes. All right. Let's get into today's episode. I got my first period at 13, and I remember already feeling behind. Most of my friends have gotten theirs before me, but what stood out more than timing was the tone of the conversations around it. Everything about being a woman sounded overwhelming, painful, embarrassing, like something we just have to survive. And no one, not one person, ever explained what normally actually looked like. No one said, this is what healthy bleeding looks like. This is the kind of pain that is expected, and this is what is not. This pattern you can trust, and this pattern deserves attention. I was growing up in a rural town in Mexico in the 90s. There was no Google, no real guidance, just the teen magazines and whisper conversations between girls trying to make sense of their bodies. So when my cycle started showing signs that something was off, I didn't have the language to question it. I remember noticing the color of my bleeding were brown, sometimes almost black, cycles that stretched longer than a week, patterns that deep down didn't feel right. And this is something that my clients something say. I have this all blood coming out of me. But for me, nothing felt extreme enough to raise a red flag. So I did what most women do. I normalized it, I adapted, I moved on. And it wasn't until years later when I started navigating fertility challenges that I started paying real attention. And suddenly, all the things that I had dismissed started to matter. Fast forward today, as a mom of 4 girls and someone who works closely with women in the fertility journeys, I hear the same questions over again. Is this normal? And what's striking is not just the question, it's what women learn to accept as their baseline. I have seen charts where women tell me, I sleep on an overnight pad and a tampon, and I still leave. Oh, I just bring extra clothes everywhere, just in case. On the other hand, women who barely bleed at all, but haven't been told that that's not a real period. Somewhere along the way, we lost the standard. We stopped being taught how to read the language of our bodies, and when everything becomes normal, nothing gets questioned. But here's what I want you to know, especially if you're trying to conceive. Your period is not just something to manage, it's a message. And when your cycles are heavy, painful, unpredictable, your body might be telling you something is being missed. So let's start with painful periods. This can be a sign of underlying conditions. Painful periods are not always just cramps. When pain becomes intense, consistent, disrupted, it often falls into what's called secondary dysmenorrhea, which means there's an underlying issue driving the pain. Because your uterus doesn't just create that level of pain without a reason, conditions like endometriosis, fibroid, adenomyosis, or even pelvic infections can all be present as painful periods. And here's what this matters if you're trying to conceive. These conditions don't just cause pain, they interfere with ovulation, inflammation levels, and the overall environment needed to support pregnancy. So when pain is dismissed or constantly managed without investigation, what's actually happening underneath can go unaddressed for years. So I want you to start paying attention to the pattern of your pain, not just the presence of it. Ask yourself, does this pain stop me from my normal activities? Do I rely on medication every cycle just to function? Is it getting worse over time? Start documenting. Because when you can clearly describe your pain, its timing, its intensity, you move from this is just how my body is to real data that can lead to real answers. When pain is loud, one of the commonly missed causes is endometriosis. Before I explain it, I want to say this. Endometriosis doesn't always look the same. Sometimes it's silent. But on this episode, we're talking about when it's loud, because that's usually when women start asking deeper questions. Endometriosis is a chronic condition where tissue similar to the lining of the uterus grows outside of it. And instead of leaving the body during your period, it creates inflammation, irritation, and pain inside the pelvis because this tissue responds to your cycle but has nowhere to go. So, what does that look like in real life? Severe pelvic pain before, during, and even after your period, pain with intercourse, pain with bowel movements or urination, especially around your cycle, heavy bleeding, bloating, fatigue, and for many women, difficulty getting pregnant. And here's where most women are never told. The level of pain doesn't always match the severity of the disease, which means you can have significant symptoms and still be dismissed or told everything looks normal. But if you're trying to get pregnant, this matters a lot because chronic inflammation in the pelvis can interfere with ovulation, egg quality, and the environment needed for implantation. So again, we come back to the question, what's been missed? So here's what I want you to do. First, recognize the pattern. If your pain is loud, persistent, or affecting multiple areas of your life, it deserves more than the symptom management because there is a big difference between suppressing symptoms and restoring function. A restorative approach like NAPRO technology focuses on identifying and treating the root cause through detailed cycle tracking and a specialized surgical excision of endometriosis, removing diseased tissue, reducing adhesions, and restoring the anatomy of the reproductive organs. The goal is not just to manage endometriosis, is to heal and restore the environment your body needs to conceive. And this is why it matters for your chances of pregnancy. When inflammation is reduced, when organs are functioning as they were designed, when ovulation and hormonal patterns are supported, your body is no longer reacting. Research has shown strong cumulative pregnancy rates over time with this kind of restorative approach, especially in women under 40, because the focus is not just on achieving pregnancy, but on restoring the conditions that make pregnancy possible in the first place. So the question shifts, what is the fastest way to get pregnant? To what needs to be restored so my body can sustain it. Next, when your body whispers before your period. Low progesterone may be the missing piece. This one is often missed because it doesn't always feel dramatic. It looks subtle. It shows up those days before your period that many women don't even count. Premenstrual brown spotting or tail and brown bleeding. It's often a biomarker of low progesterone. That brown color, when it shows up before your full flow begins, it can be a sign that your body is not producing enough progesterone to properly support the lining of the uterus. Because progesterone is the hormone responsible for stabilizing and sustaining lining after ovulation, it's essential for implantation. So when progesterone is low, we can often see this spotting before your period starts, short luteal phases, difficulty sustaining pregnancy, increased risk of early miscarriage, or chemical pregnancy. And here is where this becomes very real. I didn't always know this. I experienced severe PMS, breast tenderness, irritability, bloating, hormonal migraines, but I didn't connect it to what was happening hormonally. It wasn't until later that I understood I had undiagnosed low progesterone. By the time that it was addressed, I was already in my third pregnancy on 6 months of bed rest. Every pregnancy after that required progesterone support. And while I'm grateful for that support, I can't help to think how different that journey would have been if I had recognized the signs earlier. Because this is the part many women are not told. Your cycle gives you information before pregnancy ever happens. In neurotechnology, when we chart the cycle using the Creighton model, we can actually see these patterns clearly. Premenstrual spotting, short post-ovulation phases, limiting mucus patterns. All of this can point to an inadequate progesterone production. And when identified early, it can be treated in a way that supports your body's natural hormonal rhythm, not just when you're trying to get pregnant, but before conception ever occurs. So I want you to start paying attention to what happens the days before your period, not just the period itself. Are you seeing brown spotting before your full flow? Is your post-ovulation phase shorter than expected? Are PMS symptoms intense in consistency month after month? Then chart it. Because once you can see the pattern, you can test it. And once you can test it, you can treat it. Often we target hormonal support that restores balance and supports healthy pregnancy from the very beginning. Because the goal is not just to get pregnant, it's to stay pregnant safely and sustainably. Before we close, I want to bring all this together because none of these points are random. And if there's one thing I want you to take from this episode is this. Your period is not something just to get through. Today, we talked about the 3 key signals your body may be giving you. Pain that disrupts your life is not something to be normalized. It can point to underlying conditions that deserve attention. When pain is loud, one of the most commonly used causes is endometriosis, an inflammatory condition that can directly impact your ability to conceive. And sometimes signs are more subtle, like brown spotting before your period, severe PMS, short cycles, pointing to low progesterone, and a body that may struggle to sustain pregnancy. Different symptoms, different layers, but all connected to one truth. Your body's communicating and it's worth listening. And if you're in a place where you're trying to get pregnant, or even just wondering if what you're experiencing is normal, this is not something you have to figure out on your own. This is exactly why I offer fertility clarity calls, so we can take your unique patterns, your symptoms, your cycle, your story, and begin to make sense of them in an structured restorative way. Not just to manage symptoms, but to understand what your body needs to function well and support pregnancy. Right now, for the month of April, I'm offering $50 off the session. If this episode resonated with you, I want you to take that as your next step. You'll find the link to book in the show notes. All right, see you next week.
I'm my mama's little fertility helper. If this episode has helped you, or if you feel a little more hopeful, leave a review. She'll love it.
Hi, DTC Warrior. I hope you enjoyed today's episode. If so, please leave a 5-star written review on Apple Podcasts. It truly helps to get this show into ears of more women who need it. And be sure to sign up for my weekly encouragement, tips, and insights straight to your inbox. I promise to keep it practical, hopeful, and faith-friendly. All right, I'm off to tacos, chocolate, and chart my cycle. I'll meet you back here next week. Bye.